Director at SHIM, South Hills Interfaith Movement. We are excited to be able to interview you tonight and hear about all the wonderful work that's going on in the South Hills. Allow me to just remind you that we have some awesome opportunities for you to get plugged in here in the life of our church. Don't forget to plug in for worship on Sundays. You can watch at 9 or 11 when the streams go and premiere, or you can watch them at any point in time during the week. And don't forget to click on the community groups page. There's questions there that go with the sermon. You can invite some folks over to your house. You have an opportunity to kind of talk and discuss with what's going on each and every week as we work through our Fluid series. Just finished up having the 5 to 7 communion and prayer time. We did that on Monday and Wednesday of this week. We had lots of people that came and came through the church and had an opportunity to pray and to receive communion, and they were excited to be able to do those things. So just keep looking back on our website for updates. We got lots of things coming, lots of ways that you can get connected, and you don't want to miss out on any of those. But all that to say, we're excited tonight to have you here, Jim. We're excited about what South Hills Interfaith Movement is doing. For those of you that have been around Christ Church for a while, before Jim was at South Hills, before I was at Christ Church, Brian Bachnight, who was the senior pastor here, was actually chair of the board of SHIM. So we have had ties with SHIM for a long time.
Long time.
Yeah, we've partnered over a lot of things, and you all do some really great work. I do need to apologize. We did steal Gina Mar Simmons from you a few years ago. Now Molly Penderville is there, and she's a member of our church. So we kind of work together in those.
We forgive and forget.
In those areas. But before we get started, I just want to kind of invite you to share a little bit about yourself. How you ended up at SHIM and...
Sure. I've been at South Hills Interfaith Movement, originally Ministries, and we made the name change back in 2016. I joined staff in October of 2006, so I'm coming up on 14 years here soon. And really at that time, I was with the United Way prior, but felt removed from the actual need in helping people and really felt a call, thought of ministry at a point for a brief second or two, but then thought I could answer that call this way. And I've been there, took over as the executive director in August of 2007. And, we've keep reinventing the wheel and keep doing some great things. So I've stayed.
Awesome. That's wonderful. Tell us a little bit, are you married, kids?
Sure. I've been married now for 23 years, or actually 25 years now, this coming October. 3 kids, great kids, a 19-year-old, a 17-year-old, and a 15-year-old. And they're great kids. We live in the Castle Shannon community. My kids actually go to Bethel Park, so we're blessed. I'm 5 minutes from work, 10 minutes from work on a bad day of driving, which sure as heck beats driving downtown. And so we're just blessed.
And I think that's kind of, we actually met outside of ministry because both of our kids swim.
Right.
And we ran into each other and kind of met each other swimming, and then we realized, oh wait, we're both in ministry in the same area, and away we went from there, right?
Small world, and God has a plan.
Yeah, so it's exciting. Like I said, SHIM helps so many people here in the South Hills. And when we talk about poverty, a lot of times we end up thinking about poverty through the lens of inner city, urban ministry. A couple of weeks ago, I interviewed Larry Hamitsky from Church Union, also who came out of Christ Church and the work that we do there. But there is a real difference between inner city poverty and suburban poverty.
Absolutely.
Can you give us a little bit of insight there?
Sure. I think, and for those who are members here at Christ United, I mean, certainly you've understood ever since 2005, for the first time in our country's history, suburban poverty started outnumbering urban poverty, and it's been that way ever since then. Certainly the Great Depression didn't help that. But suburban poverty is very different and looks very different. First of all, there is the challenges that folks have as far as just reaching out for help. the embarrassment that I may be living in a great community, a Bethel Park, an Upper St. Clair, a Mount Lebanon, and the idea that I may need help. But yet there is this great safety net of social services that are here to help folks whenever they come on hard times. And so that's usually the first challenge with suburban poverty. The other thing is that to the outside person looking in, nothing may look different because of the idea and the hope of keeping that imagery up. And so what you'll see are great homes, great cars and driveways, kids doing everything that the other kids are doing, but yet the family is very much struggling to make ends meet. And so we're here to be that bridge to that better time. And it's just a matter of helping folks where they're at. I think the other thing that folks seem to neglect to recognize, but we're going to see more and more of it as we go forward, this is an aging community. And so you have a lot of seniors who lived in this community, raised their families over 40, 50 years. Some may be widowed, and now they've got to make ends meet, and incomes are fixed, and taxes keep going up, everything keeps going up, and it's harder and harder, but they want to stay in their home. And so it's great that we're here in the South Hills to serve. I often say for those that are struggling, the hardest steps are the first two out their front door to come to us. But once they get to us, hopefully we make them feel welcomed and help them on that pathway to back to being self-sufficient.
Now, I definitely want to get into the ministries that you all do on a regular basis, but we're all right now dealing with this whole COVID-19 thing and what should we do? How do we handle a global pandemic? None of us have ever lived through one of those. We've read a book on how to deal with one of those. I'm guessing from what I've seen and heard, some of the people that maybe were afraid to reach out to Shim in the past are less afraid because they don't have an option right now. And I know you've done a couple of big drives.
Right.
So can you share a little bit about what Shim's been doing for just COVID, and then we'll get to your regular ministries.
I think in a lot of ways with COVID, we're like anybody else. We're flying the plane as we're building the plane, and we're trying to figure things out. The first thing that we wanted to make sure of when COVID hit, and it just seems like it was so long ago, but it was only 3 months or 4 months ago, middle of March, is certainly for the safety of the Shim staff, the Shim volunteers, and even those we're serving. So the immediacy was we took all of our food pantries to be a walk-up or drive-through distribution. One of the things that we try to instill in all of our programs is the dignity and the respect, that even though you're on hard times, there's still dignity and respect. So our food pantries used to be a shop through so that folks could have the opportunity to make selections. Well, unfortunately, we've done away with that for now, and probably for the foreseeable future. It's a prepackaged box. And so folks will, when we're at Shim Center in Bethel Park, we've created a queuing system in the parking lots. Folks will drive in, never need to get out of their cars. We have absolutely seen our numbers at all of our food pantries continue to go up. Hopefully they're leveling off a little bit right now, but we are definitely serving more families in the South Hills. But you mentioned those two large-scale food distributions that we partnered with the Greater Pittsburgh Community Food Bank. And the first one we did just shy of 1,000 cars in 2 hours, and just this past Saturday was the second one, and we did approximately 400 to 500 cars in that one, where folks came, no questions asked. If you showed up, you were able to receive food boxes and then just drive on through. So primarily a lot of our programs have been focused on those basic needs. Now what we are definitely also seeing in the COVID is a lot of families are struggling financially, and so they're reaching out for financial assistance, and we're blessed with some funding to be able to offer folks under certain guidelines some help with paying bills. Whether it's because they just don't have the savings, or whether it's because the unemployment is still trying to get resolved because of the state system wasn't exactly technologically advanced to today's standards. So we've got those opportunities. So the message to everyone is, if you know of a neighbor, a church member, a colleague that is struggling, I mean, definitely refer them to Shim, because there are resources to help people.
Well, and I think it's important for people to realize you do so much more than just provide food.
Right.
I mean, I know here we do monthly food drives, and we send food over your direction and finances over your direction, but you're plugged in and trying to help the family as a whole, not just from a food perspective.
Right.
I know you do a lot of work in Prospect Park too. So
Sure. Well, and during COVID, all of those programs have continued. We've just been no different than anybody else. You rethink how you do things. A lot of our staff are at home. But with technology, you can connect, and it's not the same as being face to face, and it's challenging for my staff because as social workers, it's social.
It's in the name.
It's in the name, and so they're challenged in that context. But there are opportunities using new ways of doing some things, and so all of our programs have continued. Whether it's helping folks with the idea of parenting, and especially in today's world, and parenting taking on a lot of new roles, teacher. And how to make all of that work. So parenting classes are still going on. All of our information referral. I mean, SHIM is not going to be the answer for everything, but we have great staff at SHIM that know where those resources are. So helping make those connections are extremely important. And then just, our garden program is up and running. So, I mean, in a lot of ways, folks ask me what's changed for SHIM or what's changed for me personally. And because I live so close, I mean, I've been going into the office every day. I mean, nothing has really changed for me in that context. And a lot of pride that we have is yes, our programs may look different, but they're still there, and we're still serving people in different kinds of ways. So the information and referrals are still available. The garden program is a perfect example.
Explain that a little, the community garden.
Sure. Actually, it was a grant from the United Methodist Foundation about 7, 8, 9 years ago. If you've ever been over at SHIM Center in Bethel Park, we have a little bit of a lawn area. And quite honestly, my kids got tired of being volunteered to cut that every evening when it was time to cut during the summertime, and so we turned over the soil and just started with a garden. The first year we grew like 1,600 pounds of food in that little space, and since then we are now up to about 14 or 15 community gardens. Various congregations throughout the South Hills, some private entities have grown gardens. We help provide the oversight in what to grow. We have a wonderful gardener on staff, master gardener. She knows a lot about sunshine and all of those crazy things, soil preparation. And then we work with the congregations, and it's a great way for bodies out of pews to go do the work that we're all called to do. And so we benefit as SHIM, and a lot of the produce that is grown is brought back into our food pantry. So not only are our food pantries serving for those that are hungry, but it's hopefully helping with a healthier diet. So it's all about nutrition and how to best do that. So the gardens this year, I mean, without putting seeds in, you're not going to get produce out later. And so we got the seeds in and the plants in early enough, and now we've got these gardens growing, and we'll be harvesting here probably soon.
Which is unbelievable. I drive by one on my way here, and I'm seeing it starting to grow.
Exactly.
It's kind of neat.
Yeah.
When you get to drive by and you realize how many people that's helping. And I know you do a lot of work with the family in general. And one of the areas that is a struggle, I think, for a lot of people is not just whether or not they have enough money, but it's how to handle money. Like, are they literate financially? And a lot of people just aren't. They just struggle. And I know you guys do some work there.
Sure, we work with folks. I mean, part of our process in the past with the food pantry has been that folks had to submit a budget. And quite honestly, money management, I believe, is a lost art. I mean, we know from statistics, it's not one of the most commonly discussed topics in the home. And so you think of, you rely on it in school. And I remember when I was a kid in school, yes, you learned economics, supply and demand and all of those things, but nobody ever sat us down to say, this is a checkbook and this is what credit looks like and this is why credit scores are so important. So I think we've lost as a society that art of understanding how to manage money. And so we're here to help folks fill out budgets and start that process along on understanding what their credit scores are, how to start repairing those credit scores. And we work in partnership with other nonprofits. NeighborWorks has been a great partner. The banks have a lot of resources to help individuals manage their money in a more appropriate way, so that there are some folks that come to us, their incomes are fixed. The cards have been dealt, they're going to play that hand until the good Lord calls them home. But working with people to figure out, if you manage the money a little differently, you could create some wiggle room. So by coming to the food pantry on a monthly basis, you may free up $200 to $300 in a monthly budget. how are you going to take those dollars and reapply them productively to help you with medications or things along those lines. So it's a lost art. It's just a shell game as to how to help people do that. But that's a huge important idea of getting people towards self-sufficiency.
And you know, one of the problems, I mean, especially with COVID, probably why you're seeing such an increase is people are furloughed or they've been laid off, or they're unemployed, or their unemployment has run out, or a variety of reasons. And you also probably deal with a lot of folks that just have a hard time finding a job and really don't know how to market themselves or even where to look. And I think you probably do a lot to help with career building too.
We do. We have a great partnership with Jewish Family Community Services through their Career Development Center. That we have a counselor, or in the past we've had a counselor in Shim Center one day a week, or every other week, so to speak. And really, I mean, I think back to the 13 years I've been here at Shim. When I applied here at Shim, you actually filled out, you had a resume and you sent a paper resume to Shim. I mean, that's a different world now. You've got LinkedIn, everything's done electronically. Can you fill out, and how do you make yourself stand out when everything's entered electronically into a lot of the systems? So working with people with those skills to do those things, working on preparation for job interviews. It's how do you sell yourself, and in today's world, how do you sell yourself via virtual,
right?
And how do you make that all work? And understanding eventually the idea, I mean, you know, you look at the kids out there in today's world, and everybody's got these various social media accounts and everything. Well, once it's out there, it's out there. And so making sure folks start to understand what's your social footprint, and what, if I'm an employer and I look for you, what am I going to find, and is that what you want me to see, kind of context. So there's a lot. The job world is very different today, but you're absolutely right. A lot of folks, I mean, they're just temporarily furloughed and hopeful that temporary doesn't become more permanent.
Sure. When you were talking about the finances and helping people put a plan together, and you said you had some people that they're fixed. I mean, it is what it is. It's not going to change. Right. I would guess that most of those are seniors. Right. And I know you do a lot of work with seniors. What would you like us to know about the work you're doing with seniors?
Sure. I mean, again, when you look at the demographics going ahead here, I mean, seniors are definitely going to outnumber those under the age of 18 here if they already don't. And that's the foreseeable future. So one of the great programs we have, we piloted it about 2 years ago. It's called Checkmates. You know, one of the biggest challenges for seniors is the isolation of being home alone. Possibly widowed, most likely widowed. And so it's a volunteer-led program. Volunteers are recruited, preferably seniors, so that they can relate generationally. And they'll make, once a week, they make phone calls to these seniors who have voluntarily signed up. And it's the call, part of it is a checkup call. Is everything going well? And we train the volunteers on listening for some cues. But most of it is just for the isolation, and it's so an opportunity just to have a conversation, just to engage and connect. And that could be a 5-minute conversation. In some cases, it could be a 30-minute conversation, depending on how they've hit it. And what we've seen just in these 2 years, I mean, they form friendships, and we've set boundaries. But the idea of, you know, you can pick up the phone and call on that given week, and you start to ask about, well, how was the grandkids visit? Because you knew the grandkids were visiting in the last week. And I mean, it's heartwarming, and it definitely is helping the seniors break down that isolation of just being so alone. I'm sure you here at the church do a fantastic job with outreach to seniors that are shut-ins and those things. But this is just another resource in the community.
Yeah, and the more of those there are, the better. There's
Absolutely.
No question about that.
We'll let you handle the spiritual side, and we'll take care of the other more casual stuff.
There you go. As I'm listening to you talk, I hear you talking about how things have changed, even at Shim, from when you first got there with the paper resumes to now, and all the different things, and the stuff that you're doing at Shim now. If it isn't new compared to when you first got there, it's definitely new in the sense of you've changed how you do it.
Right.
What do you have coming up on the horizon? Do you have anything exciting that you're looking ahead to, or what you're going to do coming forward?
Sure. I think along the way, I mean, we've started a campaign, and we're in the quiet phase. It's called the Do More Good campaign. And it's really to position Shim for the next 50 years. We're 53 years old at this point, and we want to be here for the next 50 as well. And so Part of that is, I mean, we're very attentive to listening to what the needs of the community are. SHIM has been very, I describe it as being very chameleon-like over our existence. I did have the pleasure of, when I joined SHIM, Brian Bachnight was still on the board. So I did get to know Brian for about the year or last year of his service on the SHIM board. But it's understanding what are the needs in the community and letting that sort of be a guiding star for us. But there's times that, there's going to be needs we can't meet. We don't have the expertise. We'll look for a partnership to do that, or we're just not the right one to do that. So we'll look to the community. I mean, certainly coming out of the Great Depression, things were picking back up. We were, COVID's going to change all of that. I think it's hard to predict what 3 months from now is going to look like, let alone a year or 2 years out.
Sure.
I certainly think part of what I would love to do with SHIM before I ever think of leaving, it's in our name, Interfaith. That whole discussion of what does interfaith mean today, what does diversity and inclusion, given the context of what's going on in the community and the world with the various tensions between race and where can we sort of go back to the future with some of our roots of how we got started with the priest, the rabbi, and the minister, and really look to building that community that we all want to be in the South Hills, which is a thriving community for everybody. So, I mean, those will be things on down the road. I mean, but again, it's really to meet the needs of the community. There are some challenges that we know are out there still. Mental health is a huge challenge for folks. Not too long ago, the big news in all of the news was the opiate addiction, and that certainly has not gone away. Right. So it's how can we be responsive to doing those things, knowing we only have so much capacity and we know what we do well. So where can we find those right partners? Yeah,
and the hard thing is when things hit the news, the stuff that we've been dealing with, like you said, it doesn't go away. It's just no longer in the headlines. Right. And it's hard to get help for that anymore because it's no longer in the headlines. And that's where ministries like yours, where churches, I mean, regardless of the faith background, any faith wants to help people.
We're all called to help.
We're all called to help.
Yep.
And we at least have that in common if we don't have more than that in common. And that's a good starting point.
Well, and I've often said I am so blessed to run this organization and that we are in the South Hills. We have the capacity within our own community to help ourselves. There's lots of communities that need help from outside. They just don't have the financial capacity. They don't have the expertise. One of the things that we started with is what's different about suburban poverty. There's not a lot of shims in the suburbs. So we are a game unto ourselves, so to speak. Whereas I hate to say when you go into some other communities that are lesser off, some more of the urban communities, you could pick up a stone and throw it and hit a nonprofit. Well, here in the South Hills, it's shim. In a lot of ways. So it's how, though, that this community can respond, and they do all the time, whether it's through Christ United in your first Sunday of the month with the food collection. We are so blessed in this community with its giving. And we've seen that certainly with COVID. As much as there's challenge, the community has stepped forward. We've been blessed by that. They understand, though, that we'll be good stewards of those dollars because you don't know what September, October, next January are going to look like. And so we'll do the best that we can.
Well, and you do a good job of keeping us in the loop because obviously when we're not meeting, those first Sunday food drives are hard to happen. And you made it clear to us that it's easier for you to buy food in bulk at a better rate. Right. And we were able to share that with people from our congregation. We actually had people from our congregation just give us their entire stimulus check to send your way. Fantastic. So you could do those kinds of things, but that's because of communication. And that's the only way it's going to work in the community.
It's communications and it's connections and relationships. I mean, at the end of the day, back to this idea of social that we're very much blessed and to trust one another. We're thankful that you trust us in the past, and hopefully we've never done anything to jeopardize that good stewardship of those dollars and the relationship. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know we have several people that volunteer at SHIM already. And I know most of what you do is done with volunteers. So can you tell us a little bit about if somebody were to want to volunteer, other than going through their own church, which we already do, how can they volunteer at SHIM?
Sure. Without the volunteers, that's the manpower for SHIM. Yes, I have some staff, but not nearly enough. And I couldn't raise enough money to pay that much staff that I would need to do all the work. So volunteers, the easiest way is www.shimcares.org. There's a section in there for volunteerism to fill out the right paperwork. In today's crazy world, unfortunately, volunteering has changed. There's a lot more around clearances and background checks, which is, again, we want to be safe for everybody, our participants and those who are volunteering. And then we can always use more hands. It may take us a little longer to get to you right now because, we're being very selective in what volunteers we are reaching out to because of COVID. The great news is we got a lot of volunteers. The challenge for us is a lot of them are in that high risk category because they're all retired or they have a pre-existing health condition. So it's a great balance. I've got great staff, as you mentioned, Molly, who worships here. She's phenomenal. And so we'll make things work.
So as we're coming to our close here this evening, what is one thing you'd like the folks at Christ Church or the folks watching tonight to know about SHIM, either now or going forward? Or
Sure. I think there's two. One is thank you very much for all of the support over the years, whether it's been financial or manpower. Christ United is one of the model churches of the relationships we have, and so we're very appreciative of that. The other thing that I'd love folks to leave with, if you only leave with one thing, it is the idea that no family, no individual in the South Hills should be struggling to make things work. And you may not know where all the answers are, neither may SHIM, but refer them to SHIM, and we're going to do the best we can to help and serve our South Hills neighbors to get them to where they need to be. And that's where we're called, the least of these, and what did we do?
And I can definitely attest to that. We've sent people their way, and they have definitely been helped over the years. As we close, I just want to pray for you, pray for SHIM and the work that you're doing in the South Hills, and encourage you to keep it up and keep us up to date with what's going on, and let us know how we can continue to partner going forward.
We welcome that.
So let's pray. Lord, we are just grateful for Jim and the call that you have on his life to be the executive director at SHIM and to make a difference fighting against suburban poverty here in the South Hills. We are grateful for the work that he does and the relationships that he builds and the interfaith work that he does through the different churches and denominations and synagogues and temples and all of those areas that are all striving to help people here in our community. We ask that you continue to bless those that are volunteering at SHIM, keep them safe during this time and during all times as they continue to give of themselves. And we ask that you would be with all those that are receiving help from SHIM. Help them to not be afraid or ashamed to reach out. Just help them to know that SHIM is there to help them. And then when they're back on their feet, they can pay it forward. We ask that you continue to bless the work that they're doing. And we thank you for the work that they are doing here in the South Hills community. And we encourage and support them in all the ways that we can going forward. We ask all this in your son's name. Amen. Amen. Well, thanks, Jim, for joining us. It was great to have you. We'll fist pump like that, right? Don't forget, tune in on Friday morning for a devotion as we continue C3. We're excited about what God's doing here, and hold tight because we're going to be opening for worship here in the not too distant future. So keep checking in so you can find out information on that as well. God bless and have a great night.